Companies have not been created to protect the owners from public scrutiny. Companies have been created to make business easier, to facilitate business transactions.
In our experience of 15 years of reporting on crime and corruption, we've seen this type of obscure financial structures involved in all kinds of crime, from drug trafficking to cigarette smuggling to human trafficking to hurting the environment in a big way. It's always about opaque kind of structures where you don't know who's really benefiting. You gotta know who are the people behind the business in order to understand who profits from the crime.
For many, many years, it was very easy to hide. So you could just simply open a company and use that company to then open a bank account, purchase an asset like a property or a luxury good. The European Union decided to open up this information to the public, and that's when they set up beneficial ownership registers.
The EU was actually at the vanguard compared to all of the regions in the world, and it was actually one of the leaders in terms of transparency, not only because they were among the first to have these registries held by a government authority, but also because of making this information publicly available.
And when we had this information accessible, we could see that authorities were not necessarily using it. Journalists were able to retrieve all the information from the Luxembourg register, and in these investigations they were able to identify politicians from Brazil, from Lebanon, from African countries that often under investigations in their own countries, and authorities didn't even know that they had those companies in Luxembourg. There were two businessmen from Luxembourg that felt that having their names in the register would put them at risk. And they decided to go to court to challenge that. The court in Luxembourg referred these questions to the European Court of Justice. And the Court of Justice decided that indeed having the names of beneficial owners in registers are problematic, would infringe their privacy rights.
If we look in particular at this ruling, we see that the case that ignited was pushed by a British law firm who's known for attacking journalists in what is known as SLAPs, these frivolous lawsuits against public interest, against journalists. So we're seeing these same people cheering the decision of the European Court of Justice on LinkedIn, on other places, because it's in their interest to get more money from the oligarchs that they represent, from the criminals that they represent, from the kleptocrats, and so on.
So that will reinforce and bolster all those who oppose public access to begin with. And we know that many of those who were behind this lawsuit trying to restrict access in the case of companies feel empowered to actually go and block public access in countries like the UK or other countries, and especially for other types of information that was very relevant to fight financial crimes. The ruling, in a way, is just protecting those that are exploiting tax havens and shell entities so as to remain hidden, and there is no evidence that after these registries came into existence and gave public access that any criminality increased just because of that.
As a consequence of this ruling, we already saw at least 8 member states shutting down the access to their registers, meaning that journalists from across the globe, not only from the European Union, organizations from across the globe, and even law enforcement authorities and financial intelligence units from other countries no longer can use these registers.
The reality is that the official processes to get information is very burdensome and complicated. So many authorities would actually disclose that they actually prefer the public access, online direct access, instead of actually having to ask information from someone else. So of course you need this public access so as to enable NGOs that do work on investigations, as well as of course the media, but also obliged entities like banks or lawyers or notaries that have to do the customer due diligence and have to do this know your customer and check who they're doing businesses with.
Because we're very much aware of the fact that if you take all the investigative reporting community in the world, that's a small town. How can you take, with this small town on a thing that happens on a global level, on such a huge level? So you need allies. It's really crucial for the public to have access to public registries of beneficial ownership, because you need more eyes on the information.
As immediate next step, the European Commission, member states need to set up a process that would enable journalists and civil society to use beneficial ownership registers and to use it freely. So we need to guarantee broad access, unfiltered access to those that have a role in the prevention and fighting of money laundering and financial crime. In the long term, we hope that it's going to be recognized that beneficial ownership registers have broader objective as well, which is to prevent fraud, conflict of interest, or even guarantee a more transparent business environment. And that's what we're going to continue fighting for.
We'll continue doing our work, we'll continue publishing investigations, but we're aware of the fact that there's a lot more that needs to be done, and this can be done only with the public on your side.